hoping we could start with you with optimal frequency for endurance athletes, whether you're starting, intermediate, or advanced. Obviously, they're different, but we could start at beginner.
Yeah. So for a beginner, the frequency is really going to be part of it's going to depend on how if you've done anything beforehand. If we're just talking about running, some runners just starting out, you might only be able to do 2 or 3 days a week, and that's totally fine. Um, but as you progress and you get more into running, like we go from 2 to 3 days a week to maybe 3, 4, 5 days a week. And then once you get, you've been running for a while and you really get into it, there are runners who run twice a day, not every day, but some do doubles. We call them doubles. You run once in the morning, once in the afternoon. You can split it up where you do like a hard workout in the morning and then you do an easy run in the afternoon. And when I say workout, I mean like a hard running workout. You do a hard running workout in the morning and then an easy run in the afternoon to help your body recover and just increase blood flow. So it's not hard by any means, but yeah, when you're just starting out, you don't want to do too much too soon. So one of the problems is that people, the beginning runners, see runners who've been running a long time and they have them, or they think that in their minds they're like, oh yeah, I should be running 5 or 6 days a week. Part of the problem with that is that the muscles, joints, tendons, ligaments aren't really ready for that. And so one of the issues is that your muscles, like your legs, your heart, all of the muscles of your body, they adapt relatively quickly because there's a lot of blood flow, but the tendons and ligaments don't necessarily adapt as quickly because they don't have the same amount of blood flow. And so if you are ramping up your frequency and or intensity too quickly, I know we're just talking about frequency, but intensity kind of goes right along with
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
If you increase your frequency a little bit too quickly, then your tendons and ligaments aren't going to be adapted to that stress that you're placing on them. And that's where some of those injuries can occur. And so you really want to take it slow and build your way up. And that's why working with a coach is a really beneficial thing to do because they will, gradually increase your training frequency and load so that you're at less risk of developing those injuries. So, just starting off with a couple days a week and then working your way up to multiple days a week and then potentially even doing doubles as you get more and more advanced. Although I will say I coach over 20 athletes and I think maybe like one or two of my runners do doubles. Now, triathletes is a little bit different story because you're not placing the same stress on the body. So, for example, you could do a swim in the morning and a run in the afternoon, and then the next day you could do a bike in the morning and a run in the afternoon because you're not placing the same. It's not exactly the same stress on the muscles, tendons, ligaments, joints. So triathlon's a little bit different than single sport, but running especially, I think most endurance athletes are runners. It's a lot more available than like swimming or cycling because all you need is a pair of shoes, right? You don't have to buy a multi-thousand-dollar bike.
yeah.
Although some of the running shoes are pretty expensive nowadays. So, running, doing doubles is something that's really reserved for people who have been running for a long time or who are a little bit more advanced in their running, or I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, you could be a less advanced runner and still do doubles where like you only have time to run, a mile or two in the morning and so you have what 20 or 30 minutes, right? So you have 20 or 30 minutes in the morning, you have 20, 30 minutes at night. Like you could do a double where you're running 20 or 30 minutes in the morning, 20 or 30 minutes at night. Um, so you don't have to be super advanced to do double run days if you only have time for a little bit here, a little bit there, even like 10 minutes if you want to do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night. I would caution again, like make sure you're building up slowly because you don't want to do too much too soon. But a double doesn't have to be a run workout in the morning and an easy run in the afternoon, as I mentioned previously.
Yeah, so I had one point on that and then two questions. So I actually was just doing some like tendon strengthening stuff over the past couple mesocycles, and a lot of the literature I found showed that any meaningful degradation of tendon to where it's going to be built back with collagen synthesis takes 76 hours, is what they're showing.
Mm.
But like muscles can be even quicker than 48, depending on how much damage it took. So like 3 days in between instead of two. Um, and then a point that's going to turn into a question. A lot of texts equate wrongly frequency with volume, meaning that they only use frequency as a way to increase more volume. So, like, you'll see a recommendation this type of athlete should start at 3 days a week and progress up to 5 days a week, assuming that that means an increase in volume. But you could spread out the same amount of volume over 5 days a week, which is exactly what you covered when you said that you could do like a couple miles in the morning and then a little bit more later. You mentioned with the 2 a day workouts, that's what we call them on this side of the strength and conditioning spectrum. Um, you mentioned that morning and PM workouts. Is there a particular order you like to do them in? Is the morning always the hard workout, or is it athlete dependent, or how do you like to handle that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it really depends on the athlete. I think that, if you're just starting out doing it, you could just do two easy runs, right? Do a 60-minute long run, a 60-minute run in the morning, a 30-minute run in the afternoon. It doesn't have to be like a workout per se. And it depends where you're at in the season and the adaptations you're trying to go for. If you want to do the hard run in the morning and the easy run in the afternoon, right? If you do the hard run in the morning, you're going to be more fresh, less fatigued, and so you might be able to hit certain paces and take less rest than you would need to if you did in the afternoon. But if you're trying to practice like running on tired legs or something like that, yeah, maybe you do a 60-minute run in the morning, an easy run, and then you do your workout in the afternoon after you've gone through your day and went to work, or did that run earlier in the day, and so you might be a little more fatigued going into that run. And we're just working on maintaining form and hitting those paces even when you're tired, because at the end of a race you're going to be tired. And so it really just kind of depends where you're at in the season, what the adaptations are that you're going for, and kind of like the level of athlete that you're working with. So again, that's kind of why it's important to like work with a coach. And I know this, but as an athlete, it can be really easy to just focus really narrowly on and not see the whole picture. And that's where like a coach will be able to kind of take a step back. And even myself as an athlete, right? I have a coach, even though I coach athletes, because when it comes to my own training, I'm kind of like blind to like what I actually need to do for the grand scheme of things, because I'm like, oh no, I gotta focus on this and I gotta do this. And it's like, oh well, the coach allows take a step back and see the bigger picture. So yeah, it really depends on the athlete, the adaptations you're going for, and kind of like the time of season that you're doing it in.
It's hard to be objective when you're kind of coaching yourself. I actually have a really funny story about that. I did a cut, and I over the course of multiple cuts, it ended up being about 42 pounds, give or take. It was pretty gnarly, and conventional wisdom is after you lose about 10% of body weight, you take a little bit of a maintenance phase. My performance numbers were still going up, so I was like, okay, let's try two. It was fine. I started into the third with only a week of maintenance, which is borderline stupid. It's like on the line. But like my performance numbers kept going up, and I was tracking like subjective measures of sleep, mood, things like that. And they were like trending up, but like I wasn't alarmed by any of it. Um, but I just kind of kept going, just kind of kept going. And if someone came to me with what I just said to you, I would be like, okay, we're going to do a maintenance phase right now. What the heck? So the reason I kept justifying it to myself was that my performance numbers kept going up, kept going up, kept going up. And it turns out I'm just a really high responder to resistance training. Like my first year of resistance training, I gained dex at 22 pounds of muscle.
Wow.
So like I was just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then one day I forgot to take my water to one of my basketball sessions, which I was using as cardio. Got a little bit acutely dehydrated, and that just like skyrocketed me off the cliff. I got an aura migraine. My right eye looked like it was underwater. Like what I was seeing, my heart rate sitting was 130. It was freaking wild. I had that turned into a panic attack actually because stress was so high from that long of dieting. And so I thought I was having a heart attack. Um, I did a maintenance phase after that, don't worry. But looking back on it, I was like, I am so dumb. And I would never actually let an athlete do anything close to that. But in my head, I was
Right.
like justifying.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. Athletes, coaches are like the worst athletes, right? Or like sometimes we don't listen to our own advice.
Yeah, it was something. So the resistance training side of the coin is if you're completely untrained or if you want minimalist training, 2 days a week, um, full body is going to be the kind of the best place to start. Training until you kind of have that pump or jello-y feeling. We call that disruption. You're going to go for a long time with that, or get stronger depending on your goals or more powerful. And then as you start to get more and more advanced, we do want to add frequency for the express purpose of giving more and more volume, because we know that there's pretty much a dose response relationship with volume and specifically hypertrophy, which is kind of the baseline level of strength and then power. You build the muscle, then you learn to get strong with it, then you learn to get fast with it. So that's where you start seeing 4, 5, 6 days a week. And for just about every intermediate person listening to this, somewhere between 4 to 6 is going to sustain your training for like 10 years. Now, if you want to step on like a bodybuilding stage, a powerlifting stage, strongman, that's when you might start to consider after like your fifth or 10th year up to like 9 to 10 sessions a week. Um, some of those being 2 a days, to really make sure that you can recover well and make sure you're getting in a good amount of volume. One of the things you run into with strength training, especially with well, strength and power, is if you're not training that skill maximally, you're not getting better at that skill. So let's say I could bench 315 and I'm fatigued for my workout because I'm on set 10 and I'm only able to put up 260 or something. That's not enough load and performance to actually get stronger. So what you'd be better suited doing is 3 sets of bench on Monday or something, and then your Wednesday PM session, 2 more sets of bench or something. So both those can be like maximal best effort performances, as an
So you
example.
could work the same muscle group twice a day, is what you're saying.
You could, yeah. It's again dependent on volume. So like a really common thing to do is let's just take a push day for an example. Bench in the morning and then maybe some incline work and then like lateral belts or something. Your PM session could be hitting the chest as kind of like a tertiary secondary muscle. So it might be like close grip bench or dips or something where your chest is still involved, but it's not like the main target essentially. What you wouldn't want to do
Gotcha.
is have AM PM main target. That's probably a little bit too much, but it
Okay.
could definitely be secondary.
Yeah. What do you think about, so I know there are a lot of different types of strength training. You have muscular endurance, hypertrophy, strength, and power. Are they all going to require the same amount of frequency, or does one need more frequency than the other? Can you speak a little to that and just the different types of um, you know, I guess gains you're going for, whether it's hypertrophy, strength, power, or endurance?
Yeah. So for hypertrophy specifically, training a muscle group at least 2 times a week, we for sure know is better. And we're very, very confident that 3 and 4 is still better, so long that you're recovering from it. So if you start adding in the third, fourth, fifth session of hamstrings, I don't know about you, but my hamstrings take a lot of damage. I would kind of be walking with a limp everywhere, and you wouldn't actually be benefiting from that. But like, think about the last time you or someone you know has trained like lateral belts, like lateral raises and things like that. I don't know about you, but I've probably never had sore lateral delts, and my shoulders are not lacking in size. It's something you could probably train multiple times a week, 4 or 5 every day, depending on if you're doing the appropriate amount of volume. So for hypertrophy, 2's for sure better. 3 and 4 are likely better, so long as you can recover from them. Strength and power, I like to think of these as like skills. And the skills of strength and power benefit from frequency, more so because you have to give that maximal effort. And the more sets you do in a single session, the less likely you're able to give maximal effort, and you're likely to be training with junk volume. Set 1's going to be amazing. Set 2 is going to be great. Set 3 is going to be good. Set 4 is going to be average. So, like, did I really gain anything from the fourth set versus like 2 and 2? Both these sets
Mm,
are fantastic, right? So higher frequency for strength and power is going to be really, really beneficial. And you see this with like Smavlov and Bulgarian like squat every day stuff, where you'll have strength and power athletes literally squatting every day. And granted, they're all on gear and they eventually break in half because that's too much. But you'll see some crazy squat gains, one arm squat gains, until you break with that. The frequency is
Okay.
amazing. It's just what is it? It's like Icarus. Like how close do you want to fly to the sun?
Right. Cool. What do you say to people who are worried about like getting too big and putting on too much muscle mass too quickly? Because I know, especially with women, that's a concern is like getting too bulky and having too much muscle. So what do you say to people who are worried about getting, too big, putting on too much muscle?
Okay, so the low-hanging fruit answer to that is you can't violate thermodynamics. So if you're not eating in a calorie surplus, you're not actually going to gain weight. You're not going to get too big. So if you're monitoring the scale, resistance training isn't going to make you too big in that regard, especially if you're like an athlete like yourself, where being as light as possible matters. So monitoring your food intake and your scale is going to be step one. Second answer is people try their whole careers to get too big and still can't do it. I've been trying to get too big for 6 years at this point, and I'm just now to the point where I feel like if I take off my shirt at the beach, I'm like, yeah, that guy looks like he's like the skinny stunt man for a budget action hero. Like, it's not going to happen. So, like, people try for so long to get too big, and it takes 15, 20 years to reach your hypertrophy genetic potential. So, with that one, I would say set it down for both of those reasons.
Yeah, and specifically for women, do because I know that is what the women I've worked with, they have this fear of like putting on too much muscle. Can you speak to just like the genetic side of women and why they might not put on as much muscle as quickly as men do?
Yeah. So, low hanging fruit answer on that one again is testosterone there. So, we have like 8 times more testosterone on average, and that's required for building a large amount of skeletal muscle. There's a reason why steroids are so popular. It's because they work. Um, so there's just simply not enough testosterone in the body of an average female to get up to like 260 with abs or something you see on like a bodybuilding stage, male bodybuilding stage. So for that reason, you don't have to necessarily worry about getting too big. But then again, going back to the calories and the actual weight gain side of things, now there are crazy responders on both sides and non-responders on both sides of the equation. So there are absolutely women that through a decade of resistance training can become bigger than a male who's done 10 years of resistance training if they're on like the low end of the spectrum. I know a couple people in particular um, from undergrad specifically that there's just nothing in their genetic makeup, whether that be bone structure, genes, free-form testosterone, that's going to get them to 200 pounds of abs. Like it's just not going to happen. Yeah, but there's that. What's cool about that is usually those people that can't respond in that way tend to do really well at endurance sports. And the inverse is true. Like I gained again 22 pounds of DEXA muscle on my first year of resistance training, and I have always struggled with endurance-based activities. Like I can play basketball, soccer, etc., but there's going to be a point where I'm kind of on my hands and knees like this, kind of trying to recover, where you're just like running circles around me.
Yeah.
So if you're not responding in the way that you want to within your first 6 months to a year of a sport, and you know your training is good, whether that be you're being coached or you have a good evidence-based approach. Um, if you don't love it, maybe consider switching. You might be an all-star in your sport, or you might be an all-star on my side of the equation.
Yeah, that's one thing that I wish I would have recognized sooner with my own athletic career was like because I played baseball, basketball, and soccer all growing up. I played baseball in college. I know you're gonna find it hard to believe, but as a 5'6", and at that point, I think I was 145 pounds, a whopping 145 pounds. I never really hit the ball very hard or far.
What position did you play?
Much more suited for endurance sport at 5'6" and now 130 pounds. So Yeah, I was one who always had trouble putting on weight, and I would just eat and eat and eat until I felt sick because I was always in a calorie deficit. And so the only way that I could put on weight was to just continuously eat until like I felt sick to my stomach and try to put on weight. And yeah, I put on 15 pounds, but then as soon as I stopped playing baseball, like I immediately I'm returned to 130, which is what like I graduated high school at. So
Yeah. So, and then I have a few interesting points to that. So I was born at 10 pounds 5 ounces, and I think the last time I was 140 pounds was probably it was before definitely
years
before
old.
definitely before junior high, um, for sure. Um, so like, and then by freshman year I was 6'3", like 200 ish. Um, and then if I just kind of if I eat healthy, I wouldn't go up this high. But if I'm having a little bit more fun meals here and there and kind of just like intuitively eating, but like living life, enjoying it, um, without any effort at all, I can get up to around 260. Like I turned a bulk into when we had our first kid, I turned that into like a 2 year surplus, and that was what I peaked at was like the 255ish mark,
Two
which
year
led
bulk,
to the
baby.
yeah, which led to the 40-pound cut that I did. Thank goodness we got that through. But like, yeah, so that's genetic differences in that for sure. And that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I've always struggled on your side of things and vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,